Hello everyone! This writer vlog will follow my journey coming back to a dearly beloved epic fantasy novel called Revna. Right now I have a printed version of Draft 1 which I completed in 2022. You can see snippets of that process nowhere but my Instagram highlights, and I thought I would vlog the process of getting into and completing the rest of the book. We will get to see a bit of my creative process as an author who also draws, and a small sneak peek into the commission process. Right now, I want to read and make notes on Draft 1. Since I haven't read this book at all, just snippets as it was getting written, I do want to get reacquainted with it. However, I do know everything that happens despite this because I stayed quite true to the original outline which I made. My writer journal has come in very handy in terms of being intentional about the process, and I love adding any kind of printed visual aid. The visual aid helps me a ton in getting more invested to illustrate parts of the fantastical world of Revna, which are very vivid in my head. So with my tea in one hand and an erasable pen in the other, we can finally start the process of reading like a reader. I find it very important to make that distinction as I'm looking for nothing but a stream of thoughts brought on by the story as a whole. Developmental editing, which is a type of editing focused on bigger elements of a story like character arc, pacing, consistency, is not quite what I'm doing here, but the most similar in scale. At this point, I'm simply reading to see what I'm working with, not quite as a writer and not quite as a reader. I could never read my own writing as a reader, no matter how distant I am. I'm doing a mix of dev edits and copy edits. Copy edits focus on grammar, sentences, and even prose on occasion, as well as pacing in some aspects. But again, my main goal is to just get reacquainted with the story that I love so much and try to get that passion back. Since it's been a couple of years, it has been pretty far from my mind, and I've been writing other books, completing other books, and this one, as much as I hold dear to my heart, it is simply too good in my mind, and that's not the best way to look at a project. You should always just go into it knowing that you can make it better, rather than stopping yourself from creating it in the first place because you hold it in such high esteem. I spoke about my writer's journal and how my writer's journal really helped make my process of rereading this very intentional, so that I wasn't going in blind and floundering on what to do next. Writing down a plan before I started this process of rereading helped me make this process much more efficient. I mean, going in, I found it very scary to reread this thing that I loved so much and held so much of potential to. Thankfully, my chunky helper is never too far from my arms, so I was really jazzed to start the process with some cuddles. I set myself a very small goal because starting was one of the hardest parts of doing this. I kept putting it off. I mean, I finished this draft in 2022, and other than putting the first chapter onto Patreon for my Patreons to read, I didn't really share the book with anyone else. And I did have a little bit of a game on Instagram where I asked people to put in on a question sticker a number, and then I would read a quote from the page with that number. So that's like the furthest that I had come to sharing this work with anyone else. And now I don't know, going back into it, it was really difficult, and I put a lot of pressure on myself for doing this book, and that's why I started a new project in the same world with a lot of the same characters called The Land for Sigara. But that project, oh my gosh, I love it with all of my heart. I mean, the themes, the exploration, the setting, everything about that novel is amazing, but nothing will really touch my heart as much as Revna does. I'm sure in the future that may well change when I'm done with this, which I know that I will be, because I am stubborn as hell. Like, nothing is going to make me give up on this novel, no matter, like, you know, AI can come out and like create all of these things, people who are my peers and people who don't believe in me, and all of these things. You're always going to have rocks in your journey and boulders in your path, but like, you just have to be stubborn, really, really stubborn, and push through. I said, no, I'm passionate about Revna. I want to do Revna. I want to complete Revna. I want to have it done and out in the world, and I want others to experience and have this love for these characters again, because I had started with my art and people loved these characters because of the art, and nobody really knows the story except me, and it's hell, but it's an opportunity. The next day, we decided to go out, me and my mom, for some fruit, and I stayed in the car, and I'm very glad I did, because I got some amazing shots of these fruit on the floor, as well as this stunning silver leaf monkey. These are so shy. We tried to get pictures of them before near our house, but they just never ever came by. But because of these fruit, and because I was sitting really still in the car, they came by, and it was amazing. And then when I got home, I had to do a commission, so today wasn't much writing. I think I started and finished this in like 2 or 3 days, so I'm very speedy with my art and my commissions, and I'm very glad that my customers really enjoy that. So this is just a small part of the commission process. I hope to have a longer version of this in future videos. This is a commission that I did for Sean in May 2025. I would completely redo this if I could. I've gotten so much better at art, and it's always just a little cringe to look back and see that people paid you for that. You just want to like redo everything that you have done in the past. But just like writing, you learn and you grow, right? You can't just expect to be good at everything on your first try. But Revna wasn't always what it is now, and it actually started out quite differently. It's impossible to explain the entire history of my writing, but let me try to give you a little bit of a breakdown. This book of mine has been under construction since 2018, forming when I watched one of my first animes called Blood Plus. Truly inspired by the anime, it started as an urban fantasy with vampires, and all the characters had very different names and personalities. There wasn't even a country called Revna when this first began, but as I wrote, eventually, my love for reading epic fantasy turned the story into one. With writers like Robin Hobb, Siri Peterson, Gareth Hanrahan, and Holly Black offloading into me worlds of talking buildings, old gods that turned into crows, fae who can't lie, and boys who deserved to have their magical innocence preserved. I began writing what I loved reading, mixing in some of my passion for psychology, philosophy, and theism, as well as politics. These stories swayed me to explore the fuzzy parts of my story, like the lore of crystals, which became a magic known as Fira, and the politics of courts and vassals, which shaped the larger and more confusing family tree that I began building. Commissions and art of these characters became a reprieve and a path of exploration all at once. My art and my writing have always went hand in hand, but suddenly it was also an avenue which made others care about what I was doing. A story with 15 characters became a story with about 100 named characters over the course of 2 announced series. Revna and her prequel novel with 40,000 words in that manuscript. All this was so overwhelming at the start, but the other books that I wrote along the years made it all possible to learn prose, structure, story, and feeling. As of 2025, I have written 3 books to completion out of the 5 I have. All of these were written in Google Docs because I didn't know any other software that did the job as efficiently as it did. But they recently started implementing AI into their software. So I made a bit of a switch to Scrivener. This took some time to get used to, but after a day of playing around, I was absolutely hooked. I will be the first to admit that it had a very slight learning curve, but I found out through trial and error after uploading my entire document in. I went in and I wrote every single one of these chapter names, and then I realized, hey, I'm not just gonna copy and paste every chapter. There has to be like an easier way of doing it. It's Scrivener, right? Then I found that you just go to File, Import, and if you have your document there, you can even split it using the original structure, or you can split it using like special symbols, which is what I did because the first option was not working. So I clicked that, I used a $sign, and then I imported it, and my entire book is there. Look at it. All of it. And I sat for so long, I think about, I don't know how long, 20 minutes, half an hour, writing each of the chapter names and chapter perspectives. That's not all I had to do though. The world building doc for Revna sits at around 30 to 40,000 words right now, so moving all of that was hell on earth, but a great way to start. I had left all of those notes unsorted, but there were so many about languages, the countries, the history, the magic, and adapting to Scrivener's interface while going through all of these was a very, very eye-opening experience. I remembered things that I had written years in the past which I had forgotten about. I had new ideas for new books and new novels and new short stories and anthologies. And it really showed me that just looking back at the things that you wrote in the past is often so helpful to create a new love and passion, or rather to ignite that old love and passion that you once had. With all of this moving going on, I made sure to take my time reading through the draft. But by the end of it, I was wrecked. There was so much of work to do moving forward, and it was hell to see all of my plans derail before my eyes. But I took some notes, and I made myself go one step at a time as I made a plan on what to do next. Between commissions and a move from Asia to my home in South Africa coming up, there was a lot of stress about how to proceed with the draft in the time frame that I was given. And reading through it, I just realized how much in need this draft was of work, of time, of effort, and lots of editing. Though this was great. I made progress. I pulled out a project that I love. I gave myself a chance to try. I made a goal and I stuck to it, and for that I was so pleased when reaching the final pages of this draft. I wrote this, all of the crap, all of the wonder, all of the passion, to see Ivera, Aaron, Cassandra, Riuel all on page physically gave me more joy than stress over the reality of the quality. I'm someone who gets excited over rejections because it means that I've gotten out of bed to try. It means that I have something to reject. My biggest fear as a writer is not poor quality, it's having no writing to judge. Part of writing is the joy of the journey, right? So if I can see a long road ahead, at least I can look at it with a smile. And I am on to the final page of this draft after sitting with it for hours and hours and hours. I have no idea what time I finished, but I just know that I felt so much of relief in getting it done, despite all of the stress of what to do next. And I'm very glad to say that the writer journal really came in handy for that part as well. I hope to make a video about my writer journal, and because it's such a huge part of my process, I'm really not sure if other writers also use one, but it's a great way to utilize it. You don't need anything fancy or expensive. So if you love journaling, there's something to look forward to. I hope you enjoyed this vlog, and I really appreciate having you drop by. Thank you to the 95 of you who subscribed. because of my last 2 sketchbook tours, I appreciate all of the comments and the likes that you left there, and I'll always aim to reply to everyone. And yeah, thank you again, and goodbye. Here's to the next step of the journey, which I hope will be uploaded soon.